we have some very big news when it comes to Camelot Unchained. This story is pretty wild and honestly a little bit confusing. So news has been going around that the developers of the game are changing their name and they are looking to license their engine. But the story is much deeper than that, and players who backed this game are not going to be happy. Camelot Unchained was kickstarted in 2013 and it raised around about $2.6 million. And there were approximately 14,000 people who backed the game. And let's just say that the development of the game did not go smoothly. A beta was scheduled for 2015, that got delayed to I think 2018. The game was going to be made by City State Entertainment, and it was forefronted by Mark Jacobs. And this is a man that you might be familiar with because he was the head honcho when it came to the Dark Age of Camelot. Quite a well-known figure in the MMO genre and quite respected at the time. And then they announced that they were going to be doing a second game before they had actually finished Camelot Unchained. That second game was Final Stand Ragnarok, and it's currently available on Steam. It went into early access, I think in October 2021. That game was not very well received, not just because it annoyed the people who kickstarted the game, asking, hey, where the hell is my game? But also, it just wasn't very good. It had a very small audience, I think literally double digits maximum. Yes, that's 2 digits, not 3. And then recently, City State Entertainment went sort of quite quiet. They got a bit of investment funding, I think in 2021, but beyond that, we didn't hear much. Until just recently, where they have announced that they are changing their name. They are now Unchained Entertainment. And they are still continuing with their 2 games, Final Stand Ragnarok and Camelot Unchained. And the big news with Camelot Unchained is that it's going to be having a release date of late 2025, so the end of next year. That's sort of exciting at least. And apparently they're still working on Final Stand Ragnarok, but I don't know why, because it's not very good. And one of the big news is that they are now trying to sell their engine. It is now called the Unchained engine, which will have the initials UE, by the way, which I'm sort of curious if that's anything to do with Unreal Engine, but I don't know why you'd want to be mistaken for that. That's probably just coincidental. And as you can imagine, people are a little bit annoyed with this, and for good reason, I think. People backed an MMO, you know, to actually get an MMO. They weren't really interested in funding an engine development. That wasn't what they signed up for, but that is what they're going to be doing. Now, I have a little bit of concern when it comes to this engine. One, because it doesn't exactly seem to be graphically all that impressive, although I don't think graphics are necessarily the engine. That's art and direction and that kind of stuff. But it also doesn't necessarily seem that this will be anything technically revolutionary. In a letter to the community, Mark Jacobs says, hey, we're making this for some RVR-centric gameplay. Don't worry, I'm not going to read this whole thing. And speaking about worrying, they say, and don't worry, no surprises such as Web3 additions, partnerships with crypto companies, etc. And that's because of some funding that they've had from, you know, those sources. However, for me, one of the questions that remains is, why would you pick the Unchained engine over something like Unreal Engine? Now, I know that the Unreal Engine is not specifically designed for MMOs, but the team at Unchained Entertainment have maybe like 30 people working for them. The Unreal Engine developers have something from between like 300 to 500 or even like 600 developers. And on top of that, a game like Throne and Liberty has recently shown in Unreal Engine 4 that you can have mass battles. Honestly, some of the battles that game has is something like 1,000 versus 1,000. It's been pretty wild to see that. So I'm just not sure that this is needed, and I'm not sure it's desired. And I can sort of see why, if you were backing a game, you want the game to become a reality, you're not really that bothered about an engine, and making your own is obviously a massive undertaking. They may have been better, and I don't want to speak out of turn, just actually using an existing engine and, you know, making an actual goddamn game. However, that's not where we are right now. They're going to try and sell their engine, and I don't know why anybody would actually use it. For me, the light at the end of the tunnel is that there might be a game, an MMO, that actually comes out made by somebody who's got the chops to make an MMO. And it's scheduled for the end of 2025. I'll be very curious if it feels dated, but I'm very happy that an MMO might be coming. I just don't necessarily think that they're going about it the right way, and I can see why people would be legitimately annoyed. I believe when they started making Final Stand Ragnarok, people actually were asking for refunds, and that makes sense. They weren't interested in funding a side game, they wanted the game that they had paid for and tried to support. Let's hope that those people actually get the game they deserve. There's some extra confusion because in a press release, they said that they were readying the official launch of early access for Final Stand Ragnarok. I don't know if I'm just an idiot or not, but this is already out and you can already pay for it. And it's already in early access. So what do they mean that they are readying the early access version? I'm just going to hope it's maybe a mistake and that they actually mean the official launch of, you know, the game and it's going to come out of early access. But if I'm honest, this whole thing sort of reeks a little bit. But yeah, let's hope there's an actual game coming because, you know, people backed it, people played it, people have tested it. They were obviously trying to make something. Now it's time to deliver on everything that those players wanted. It is actually now like pretty much 11 years after the Kickstarter, so it's about goddamn time, let's be honest. Honestly, it's such a confusing path to a game. I think the reality is that the developers have just bitten off more than they can chew, but then making an engine and then trying to sell that engine when you don't have that many devs working on it, again, sort of feels like they're biting off more than they can chew. I don't know why anybody would pick the Unchained entertainment engine, but maybe somebody will. Maybe we'll end up with a good game. Let's hope the backers get what they paid for. And you know what? I'll be curious to try this out myself. Big shout out to my Patreons. If you like this kind of video, do let me know in the comments. For now, have a most beautiful day. Like and subscribe. Goodbye.